You
Hello,
ready?
thanks for joining the stream. I'm Neil, and we have Kenneth here as well.
Cool.
And we have Kenneth
Sorry,
here.
do you hear any echo?
Sorry about that. I had the YouTube open on the other screen. Um, Great. So yeah, thanks for joining the stream. If anyone is here, we just wanted to do a stream, kind of share a little bit about what we've been working on the past couple of months, and recap a little bit about the recent trip to Earth. So I'll just kind of get started with that. So last weekend, I went to Earth last weekend, and it was great. Last a couple streams ago, we chatted with you about going to Murph. So it's a pretty similar event, but this one is in Bel Air, Maryland, and a lot of similar companies like Prusa, a lot of filament manufacturers, Protopasta, um, high end and extrusion companies, as well as a lot of awesome makers, all bring their own projects. And so I shared a couple in the newsletter yesterday that I thought were particularly interesting, and in general, it's just really great to meet a lot of people that are working on very unique and interesting things that will likely end up in products and different things in the industry in the next year or so, and also just connect with a lot of different users of Obico and hear about different things that they're working on, like the one I had mentioned in the newsletter. Michael Tech has that print farm of 35 printers, and just really awesome to hear about the farm and everything. And he has 35 separate printers, separate Raspberry Pis, all running OctoPrint. And he had mentioned that he had tried to do it on setting up multiple printers per Pi, or even trying some different hardware. But in terms of like reliability, when one thing would go offline, then all of his printers were going offline. So he had ended up, luckily before the Pi shortage, buying like the Pis in groups of 10 at the time, and was luckily able to find them at Micro Center. So I've also heard lately that's been one of the only places you can sometimes find them if you happen to have one in locally in stock. But I've checked the one by me and haven't found any at all. So that was
Lucky him.
hearing about that though. So yeah, that I think is all I had to kind of share at the moment for Earth. And I guess if we want, that can kind of segue into the Raspberry Pi project a little bit, since I mentioned that. So you guys probably know we've been kind of working on this Raspberry Pi project over the past year or so. We've noticed more and more just the Raspberry Pis have been becoming increasingly hard to find, and we've been hearing for people that are trying to set up OctoPrint as well as Clipper, finding a new or an alternative board has been pretty difficult. So the goal of this project really is to make a easy to install and easy to set up board for OctoPrint that really mirrors as much as possible the process that you're probably familiar with in setting up OctoPrint with the Raspberry Pi, and using OctoPi, downloading that onto the SD card and plugging it in, and more or less things working. So that's kind of the overall goal of the project, and we've had a lot of interest from the outer community and a lot of interest from our users as well. So we're definitely planning on moving forward with that project now.
Yeah, I'm actually. What surprised me is that I assume that like most of our users already have a Raspberry Pi, or at least have a way to run their OctoPrint already. So I didn't expect that many users, like, in the Obico community to say, "Oh, I want a alternative solution to the Pi." It looks like there are actually sufficient of Obico users who are looking to kind of like set up a second system, OctoPrint system, basically. So that was a little bit surprising, but other than that, I think yeah, like we're a little bit we're pleasantly surprised by how many people actually sign up.
Yeah, I was definitely surprised how many more of our users were interested as well, and really just shows how difficult it seems to be everywhere to find one, and especially just for something that usually is supposed to be this super accessible and low cost board to be basically going for $100 minimum on Amazon now is just ridiculous. So um, yeah, hopefully the project continues to work out, and I'm looking forward to it. One other thing that I think Kenneth wanted to just mention a little bit, and if anyone has any questions about the Raspberry Pi project or anything else that we talk about, just go ahead and mention them in the comments, and we will definitely be sure to get to your questions. But Kenneth wanted to share a little bit about the notifications that we have been working on over the past month. If you want to go ahead with that, Kenneth.
Yeah, totally. So I think if you have upgraded to our latest version of the mobile app as well as the OctoPrint plugin version, you should I hope that you have noticed that we actually added a different a new page that's called notifications. So basically, the idea was to have like one place for everything that the our users may be interested in. Such as the print job is not. Actually, some people even are interested in like the print job started. Um, like things like that, but also like errors. For example, like I'm pretty sure most of us have run into the situation when like the OctoPrint says like somehow I can't talk to the printer, so there's an error. So we want to in the past, quite a few users have brought up this idea in terms of like, yeah, we're seeing the events that's kind of like interesting events are pushed to the phone as push notification. But like once I swipe those push notifications away, I can no longer go back and check like when a particular job started, when it finished, when it was it failed. Actually, yeah, the failure alerts will also be mingled in the stream of the notification on the notification page. So that's basically like what we decided to do. Like, hey, there are enough people who have asked for that. Let's just get it done. But I, I'm being honest with you here. Like once I have done it, I looked at like this page. I'm like not exactly satisfied because I feel like it's a good it's a again it kind of like fulfill the original purpose of like having everything on in one place. But in the meantime, I have a feeling that it can be too noisy for quite a few users as well. So I guess the reason why I'm saying this is like I want everyone who have used it and found this like somehow like, hey, this is I don't like this part, I don't like that part. Definitely like sending your feedback, hopefully with some kind of suggestions on how or like what we can change to make this notification page better. So yeah, like we always listen to your suggestions, and we once we feel like there are enough people who are making the same point, and we see like why this will benefit you, we'll definitely just make the change. Yeah, so that's I guess basically I get the gist about the new notification page that we pushed out.
Cool, and I think that's everything I had on my list to update on. But if Kenneth, you wanted to add anything else, or I'll check our comments here as well.
Actually, since I didn't go to Earth, I want to I want to hear a little bit more about like your experience there. Especially like I went to Earth, but I didn't get to go to Earth, and I want to see like what I want to hear what you think is the primary differences between these two conferences?
Yeah, so I think the one of the big differences is the location, of course. But other than that, I think it has pretty similar attendees. I think for some it's just easier to get to the East Coast, and for others easier to get to the West Coast. But also with ERRF, it's a little bit more kind of formally put on, and so they have a kind of daily schedule with some different speakers throughout the whole event. So most of the sponsors that had tables at the event also did some sort of talk there, and then they also had some talks from different community members as well. One that was actually related to like an OctoPrint script for installing OctoPrint on any Linux device or deploying it on multiple instances. And so it was cool to kind of see just like a mix of the corporate, if you will, sponsors with the community members, and just working on projects that they have spent some time on in the past year or so. So that was one of the bigger differences. Other than that, they're both 2 days, and they both kind of have their own nuances and everything. But one thing I'll also add is it seems like they've had, I think MRF has been around for 10 years and ERRF is maybe a little bit less. And they're both great points for if you're for MRF anywhere in the like kind of Midwest, but even I think for California, MRF was like a little bit of a far trip. It's almost like going halfway to the East Coast. And so I've heard that they're actually working on a RRF for next year. That's going to be like the Rocky Mountain Rep Festival.
It would be, okay, making their way to the West Coast, but like,
so this is your impact too. Maybe 30 minutes, within like 30 or 45 minutes from Colorado or Denver International Airport. So they all are pretty good about being somewhat close to the airport. East Coast Rep Festival, I think, is a bit closer to the airport, where going to if you're flying to Chicago, then it's about a 2-hour drive to get to MRF, and you got to change time zones and everything.
Yeah.
But with ERRF, it's about 30 or 45 minutes to the Baltimore International Airport. But yeah, it would be nice to have one more of them. And I even heard there might be working on one in the UK as well. So that would be definitely interesting. But one other event that I thought was fun at ERRF, as I was I don't even think I went all the way to Boy Scouts, but I was at least in Cub Scouts when I was in elementary school. And so I did the Pinewood Derby event, which is, you race the wooden block car that you get the block and kind of cut it however you want. So they have the very similar but 3D printing version. So one is very much the same exact event as the normal Pinewood Derby. It's like the same class rules with weight and how the thing is constructed and how the wheels touch the base and everything. So very much for racing. And so that one's pretty competitive kind of class that happens in general. And it's the same track that they use at the Cub Scouts or the Boy Scouts. And then they have another class that's all 3D printed, except for maybe if you want like to use metal for the axles or something. And so those are very much more creative designs. And so those are really cool to see. I think the winning one was a one that was inspired by Back to the Future. It was a DeLorean, like hovercraft flying DeLorean, and fully 3D printed, except for probably some nails that they used for the axles, but the wheels and everything, and it looked great.
Yeah, I can't wait to for that day to arrive when you can just print everything, even including the axles. That will be tough because I remember axles need to be like super smooth and everything. So if I guess when 3D printing can really reach that point, that'll be extremely impressive.
Yeah, and speaking of like the metal, I haven't read the article, but are you familiar with the G-Max printer?
It's a metal desktop printer.
They're actually not metal company. They're just a normal like FDM, but they made like a really big FDM printer a few years ago. And I think they have another one now. They're out of New York City, I think, is where they're out of. But I don't think their printer is really anything special in terms of like normal materials. But I just had seen an article today about 3D printing metal with the Gmax printer with a couple special metal filaments that still involves like post processing, like with sintering. But I'm interested in it because it sounds like it might be capable of doing it with a another similar printer that's not a massive one like theirs. So I'll have to look into it. Maybe we're not as far away as we think.
Yeah, like the to me, like the almost like a dream for my life. Like the it's really to have a metal printer that that's decently good and on my desktop without like breaking my bank.
Yeah, they've just been so expensive up until now, and even the ones where you can get close to metal or somewhat close, it easily gets into 15 and then very easily into 100,000 before you know it in terms of the cost. So yeah, it'll be great once the costs get driven down a bit on that side.
Yeah, like the I guess talking about the cost, I guess we can make a quick like segue into like I know that Neil, you have been tracking the Pi supply chain, like Raspberry Pi specifically supply chain problem pretty closely. Do you want to talk a little bit more about the situations, like where people usually try to find the pies? You talk about Micro Center, but I know the image. You are aware that there are a few other places where people can possibly find pies, and if the situations are getting worse or better, what's in your opinion, your prediction on when this like the will more or less come back to the normal life when it comes to like the ability to even get our hands on a Raspberry Pi?
Yeah, I think from like everything that we've heard and seen so far, it doesn't seem like it's getting much better anytime soon. Like, I don't think that many people are bold enough to predict a date at this point, but I've heard people at least be willing to predict by that it's not going to be better before the end of 2023 or something like that. So I think once we started hearing that more and more, it became clear like some sort of solution is probably needed. But then even in terms of over the past few months, I've been trying to find them myself and trying to figure out where you can get them. So far the RPI locator I think has been the most reliable resource for the community in general. So that was really awesome. I can't remember his name right now, but we chatted on Twitter a couple times to create that tool for the community, and it's really tracking the most popular places that people are usually buying the Raspberry Pis anyways. So Adafruit and a couple others have been pretty reliable about getting shipments in stock like once a week or something like that, with maybe 100 units, sometimes 200 units, but they seem to sell out within 30 minutes or less most of the time. And that definitely speaks for the demand by itself, of course. And I think even last week it was the Raspberry Pi CM4, which is more on the developer side of things, or at least a little bit more technical side if you're buying those. And those still, they had I think 800 from the Pi shop, and they sold out within 45 minutes. So definitely just a huge demand for anything that has Raspberry Pi's name on it right now. And
that totally reminds me of like the when I was trying to like book the campsites in Yosemite, or almost like any like in the popular national park. It's like they have a certain date where like they're gonna open the next month, and like you just wait there like for like, I don't know, 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. when they opened it up, and then put the buttons as crazy, and hoping that you're gonna reserve one before it's all gone. So it's quite crazy.
Yeah, it's really a great lesson in supply and demand in general. It shows you how real it really is.
Yeah, so I guess we started to notice the problem almost like late last year and earlier, like probably the beginning of this year, I think it became more clear, right? So I think it was about that time frame when it came across as like, oh, like this thing is real, like it's the situation will get a lot worse before it can get better. So to be honest with you, I was hoping, almost like waiting for the community to come up with some kind of solution, because I was like, yeah, makers need pies, and if they're not available, like somebody's gonna like step up and figure out the solution for like the whole community. I think we see more like activities in the Clipper community, right? So if tell me if I'm wrong, Neil, but like I'm under the impression that there are like more people working on like, hey, finding ways to run Clipper, on anything but the Pi.
Right.
Whereas on the OctoPrint community, I think the maybe I missed something, but it's just like I have a feeling that like somehow either people just go with a computer or a old Android phone using Octo 4A, which I tried. It's a very clunky solution. Um, yeah, but the again, Neil, you follow this issue a lot closer than I have, and so feel free to add more things or just like correct whatever that didn't get right.
No, yeah, I think those are the bigger solutions. I've seen a lot of people they've been using Octo 4A, and I think the for certain Android phones it's worked really well, and certain phones really needs a lot more configuration, or adding things, or I think more in this case trying to remove things so it can act as more of a computer and not a phone, in terms of trying to limit as much energy usage as possible. I think has been one of the biggest issues with some of the people using it. And then I've seen a lot of people that have just been going with the cheap computers, but definitely the size is one thing, and I think in some cases the energy consumption. But as far as the solutions that I've seen popping out, I think the Clipper has been more and more. We saw just recently Creality released their Creality Sonic Pad, which I think is overall a good thing for the community, but has some mixed reviews right now because they're violating the licenses. And I think they put it with Fluid, and one of the main maintainers of Fluid was pretty just at the very least pretty annoyed that Creality, I guess, didn't talk to him about it at all, and then just like put the logo and all that kind of stuff. So it's definitely tough being an open source developer in this world. And it's great that they are. It's going to be a lot more people using Fluid and Clipper now that they're selling this thing, and it's a good solution for the time when we don't have the Raspberry Pi. But I think it would be a little bit better if they just did a little bit more correct. But other than that, even now, there's already been at least, I think, 3 printers released in the past 2 or 3 months that are coming with Clipper stock. So that's another example. And then also those main boards that are coming with the ability to run Clipper just all by themselves. So yeah, definitely more and more things popping up running Clipper.
Yeah, but I'm actually a little bit surprised here that I have an impression that for the 3D printing community, right? Usually, like the innovations more like or the solutions can like pop up more as like bottom up, like grassroots kind of approach, right? Like the solutions and like appears like just in the community by some community members, and then later on, much later on, got adopted by manufacturers. But this time around, like I think I did notice like the MakerBase, just a few other um, mainboard or printer manufacturers. They actually they're stepping up to solve the problem for the community, whereas the like the community itself so far is like there are solutions there, but like it's just not there. We haven't seen a just like obvious winner as we have in the past. For example, like OctoPrint and OctoPi emerged as an obvious winner when it comes to hey, like this is like the perfect solution for almost everyone. So and that
Right.
is also the I guess the reason why we eventually say what the whole community have supported us a lot, and it's probably a time for us to get back to the community by trying taking a stab at this problem. Hopefully we can figure out a basically the just circle back to why we're doing this. Like we're hoping and I think we're getting pretty close at this moment that if we can identify one board that's like very inexpensive with plenty of supplies and then can be as easy or almost as easy as a to set up as what we used to, which is like the Raspberry Pi experience. So finger crossed, we can get this done. And also, we're we have seen like overwhelming like interest in that. So we'll see. I'm pretty optimistic about getting across the finish line here.
Yeah, and I think on that side, like you mentioned the kind of bottom up solutions. I hadn't seen all that many, except for you and I had both seen 3DP and me has been working a lot on the Clipper by basically just kind of volunteering to try every single board out there and really taking the time to write a guide and at least provide his recommendations on the kind of level of difficulty on installing it on a particular board. And I think that's using like a lot of times using Kaya, and the more recent tool I've seen with the OctoPrint, I guess, is the first thing I've seen as more of like the bottom up solution, which is that OctoPrint install tool, which is kind of just it's like a command line tool that helps you kind of package up OctoPrint with the MJPEG streamer and installs it on any Linux based board. And so that is one example that at least seems to be getting some attention. They added on to the OctoPrint install page, but I think it's still a certain level of difficulty for some users, easy for others, and at least is an example for if people are just trying to get a certain board working or something like that, and it could be really good. But haven't seen as much of those projects popping up.
Yeah. So speaking of the Clipper, like 3D PME, that blog site and the author, we have tried probably like half of all the boards he's got. He has tried. He has been very creative, right? He even tried those TV boxes,
Right.
which surprising enough, well, not surprising, like they happen to be almost using exactly the same like architecture, CPUs, like GPUs, and everything as those typical SPCs. But yeah, like we have tried quite a few boards, and so far, Orange Pi 02 seems to be like the most promising one. And don't be fooled by the name. Like I think they did a terrible job, like naming the thing like 00 Orange Pi 02. I think it's almost it's like not like the lower end of their product lines. As a matter of fact, based on our testing, it's slightly less powerful than Raspberry Pi 3, but definitely leaps and bounds above like the Raspberry Pi 002. Just terrible name. Cool. Yeah. Anything else, Neil, you think we should talk about here?
I don't think so. I think that is everything, and it looks like we're just about 30 minutes, so probably a good time to go ahead and call it.
Cool. All right. Thank you everyone for joining the live stream.
Yep. Thanks a lot, guys.